Welcome to the Alpha Pickleball Podcast, where we slice through the noise to bring you the juiciest insights, strategies, and stories from the dynamic world of pickleball. Join us as we serve up engaging conversations with top players, coaches, and enthusiasts, giving you an ace perspective on all things pickleball. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just stepping onto the court, get ready for a volley of knowledge that'll elevate your game to alpha levels. Let the rallies begin.
All right, welcome again to the show. I'm your host, Tats. We have BJ Young, pro pickleballer. I guess I saw in your profile, gamer as well. So you have a lot of things going, but thanks for coming on the show.
No, thank you, Ted. Nice meeting you and happy to be here.
Awesome. I think your profile mentioned Spain and tennis as sort of your early beginnings before pickleball.
Yes, that's exactly what I did growing up out there. Yeah, for sure.
Was that something that sort of you enjoyed, or just your parents got into? Like, how'd you get into tennis?
Yeah, basically, we used to go to this country club in Spain, and my dad at the time was like learning how to play tennis himself and was playing some padel. And I was 4 years old the first time that I picked up the racket. And so, basically I was a little bit taller than the net already at 4 years old, and he would bring me to the courts with him. And then one of the coaches was nice enough to be like, hey, like, how old is he? He's like, oh, it's four. It's like, oh, it's fine, it's big enough. So he put a racket in my hand, and then I started hitting some tennis balls when I was four. And then yeah, I just loved it and kept playing up until I was 18.
Wow. And how did pickleball come into this?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, I'm really good friends with the Dawsons, which own the Bobby Riggs facility here in San Diego. And Steve Dawson actually was my tennis coach for a while when I moved to the US from Spain. And yeah, I mean, he just gave me a phone call and he's like, hey, I know you're not planning on playing college tennis. That's not what you have in mind. So I just want you to know that I found the perfect sport for you. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Let's go try it out. And yeah, it's kind of how I got started.
Yeah. And at what point did you know that this could be more than just a hobby, and it could turn into a profession?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I kind of like realized early on. I don't think I fully realized like the whole potential, but I thought, this is something that I can do for a long time. So I mean, I started playing when I was 18 and I'm 24 now. So I mean, it was either play pickleball, make some money, teach some lessons, or go to junior college and work at Sprouts. So to me, it was pretty clear which one I wanted to do at that point, and I never thought it would obviously, I didn't think that the return of investment would happen, so fast and it would multiply, by so much in such little time, but it kind of worked out. So I'm, really happy to be here now.
Yeah, yeah. And how'd you develop your game? Like, what were some of your early steps? Obviously, having a good coach helped, but like, what did it look like for you developing your game?
In pickleball?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, a lot of playing, a lot of reps. I would watch a lot of pickleball. And then Steve and Callan definitely helped kind of they would kind of like tell me ideas and they would plant ideas in my mind. But it wasn't anything crazy. Like I wasn't being coached by Steve or anything like that back then. I probably get a little more coaching now than I used to back then, to be honest with you. But yeah, it was just a lot of watching pickleball, a lot of playing, and just kind of talking back and forth, especially with Callan, and then just picking each other's brains.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you mentioned Callan, because your game doesn't look anything like Callan's. Like, how did like it's just was it like, hey, Callan, you do it this way, I'm gonna do it different, or is it just like what aspects did you take from him?
No, so the biggest thing with Callan, right, is like, yeah, he does play a little bit unorthodox, but that said, like he understands that that's not how everyone should play or how everyone is going to play. And so for him, outside of the grip itself, he did mention that I maybe should short hop every now and then. But I mean, he's such a smart dude and he's been in pickleball for so long. He was like, hey, If hitting a backhand slice comes naturally to you and that's what works for you, then do so. And then every now and then maybe short hop, right? So Callan's one of those people, and Steve as well, where they did have some things that they thought I should do for sure at certain points, which is just part of the game. But then they also said their fair share of like, hey, but if this comes naturally to you, you should just do that, right? So they're really good coaches and they're very smart people, so they kind of like um were able to put with how they play aside and be like, hey, this is what you're good at, and just like stick to that.
Yeah, yeah. What's the rationale on, short hopping and when it's good and when it's not? Because I know from at least from what I've been exposed to, people don't like it, right? They're like, kick in the air or
Mhm.
let it drop down. Like, what are your thoughts on short hopping?
Yeah, sure. Hopping itself, I think, is very useful, especially if someone's trying to, apply a lot of pressure to you. So it's a good way to kind of like neutralize the point. That said, it does require quite a bit of low stance. I think it requires a lot of length strength. You got to get really low. And so I'm not a huge fan of the shot itself for myself, just because I have a hard time getting low regardless. And I'm also kind of standing tall. So it just becomes a little more difficult. But I think when you're getting lower and you're seeing eye to eye and you're close to the paddle and the ball itself, I think it becomes a lot easier. And that's what Callan does so well. But I'm not against it. I think there's definitely like a right place, right time for it. But I'm more of a, just because of my length and stuff, I'd rather take it out of the air. I have long arms. I run 6'2" or so. So for me, sometimes it does make more sense to take it out of the air. But short hop every now and then for me, it can work as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen your game. You have a lot of different shots. Um, and maybe that's not something that everyone should do, but I mean, how did you develop all those shots? Did they just kind of like you pop into your head while playing rec, or did you deliberately develop all those shots?
Well, it's just one of those things. I just think everyone is just kind of good at something naturally. But at the end of the day, you have to be out there and you have to be on core for your brain to kind of work on certain things and figure out certain things, right? So for me, like if I'm drilling and I'm hitting a backhand dink or whatever, and I get tired of hitting that same backhand shot, then I might try something else. I'm like, oh, like this kind of works, or this kind of makes sense for me, or whatever it is. So it was just honestly like probably a little bit to do with my mental side of it, which I find myself decently creative, right? And stuff, but also like you have to put the time on court to kind of develop that side of it regardless. So I would say a lot of reps and then just naturally being creative helps.
Yeah, yeah. So that temperament. So when you are in a match, these shots just you're letting shots happen, right? You're not thinking, hey, here's this angle tomahawk that I worked on 20 times. Steep angle inside out tomahawk. It's just you look at it, that's just the shot that just comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I never thought like, oh, let me hit a better Ernie by doing this. It was just one of those things where, maybe I was practicing with Callan and he gave me an Ernie to hit and I got into a really compromised position and my wrist just kind of went that way and it worked, and then I was like, oh, fuck, that kind of makes sense. So it's a little bit more of just kind of like, picking my brain on the go and doing things naturally more than anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I know that, when I started playing, I saw you guys have this camera that was set up on one of your training courts or rec courts, and you kept
Mhm.
recording. What are your thoughts around that? Because you were kind of the few people that are actually exposing your game to everyone, right? In terms of you playing and getting out there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know we've done it a couple times, especially when we were playing together a couple years ago, where it just would make sense to, just kind of see what we're doing wrong and right. I think everyone should record themselves, to some extent and just kind of see, what they're doing properly and most importantly, whether or not. Now, whether you want to put it on YouTube or not, that's totally up to you. But I mean, we like for me specifically in Callan, I don't want to speak for himself, but that said, um, we're on court at the tournaments so much, and there's so many tournaments out there that just by putting a video of us practicing on YouTube or however it happened, right? Like I don't think I did it, but however it happened, I don't think it's gonna affect how people view us that much because they already play us so often, right? So there's nothing really to lose in my opinion.
Got it, because everyone knows everyone's game already. So basically, that's just another way of getting content out there and sort of, I guess, standing out, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And then again, I mean, all content is good, right? But on the other hand, it's if someone looks up if someone's about to play me men's doubles, they can find 1,000 videos out there on YouTube. So 1,001 is not gonna hurt.
How do you approach training now? Like, what do you do now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I kind of go back and forth. There's a lot of, I've been training and practicing for so many years now. Right now, I'm currently trying to lose weight. I got a little too big and too heavy, and I got a little slower. So I'm about 207 right now. I want to go to maybe 195 or so, see how I feel then. And then I was focusing on a lot of strength because I figured, if I get my legs really strong and my forearms really strong, then it should, that's kind of like what you need for pickleball outside of a strong back as well. But now I'm focusing more on like actual cardio and getting a little bit faster, getting a little bit leaner, diet, maybe a little bit more stretching itself, which is, I'm not really good at doing. But right now, especially, I would say the most important thing would be dieting and feeling good on and off the court, and then making sure that I'm getting my fair share of cardio in as well.
Got it. How do you view partnerships? I know some pros have like a 20-point list. Some people just say, "Hey, let's try it, see how it goes." What do you view on doubles partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many ways you can go about it. How I see it is that you're better off sticking to somebody that you kind of believe in and that you believe you can, do well with, whether you actually do it or not, right? And then give yourself a good try, right? Like 2 tournaments is not enough when all these people that are doing the best are playing, 6, 7, 8 tournaments or like 6 months in a row, right? Something like that. So I like the idea of kind of sticking together for 3 to 6 months and seeing how it goes, at the very least. But then obviously, like if you commit to a year and then you play 6 months and you haven't won a match, then it might be time to split up. But I'm not a huge fan of playing a tournament with a different partner every single time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For the average, let's call it 4-5 to 5-5 player. What should they not copy, but like learn from your game, and what should they not do? You know,
That's funny. To copy from my game and to not copy from my game, basically, huh?
yeah,
I would say, I mean, number one thing that I would want to encourage people to copy from my game, and something that I personally do quite often, is changing grips, right? So I don't hit my forehand dink how I hit my tomahawk earlier, right? I don't hit my backhand uh, drive or whatever how it would hit my overhead. So I mean, there's a lot of times where I'm hitting with the same grip, but I would say if you get comfortable at making slight changes on your grip as you're hitting a ball or like right before you hit a ball, like your arsenal gets like that much bigger, right? Because there's only so many shots you can hit with one grip. But if you get comfortable kind of switching it around, I just think there's so many more opportunities to for certain shots to even learn, right? So that would be the one that I would like for someone to copy me, which is why I can hit so many different shots. And then something that I would not want them to copy me. Maybe my play style itself. Like I'm very laid back. A lot of times I read comments saying that I look like I don't care. And I do care. It's just how I play it, right? So maybe looking a little more engaged, like bending your knees a little bit more, things like that. So I would like for people to do that, which I don't do. But naturally for me, like when I'm relaxed, I just play better. Could I bend my knees a little bit more? Yeah, probably, right? You can always do things better, but for me, it just happens to work out a little bit where like when I'm relaxed and just kind of like, doing my own thing, I tend to play a little bit better. So that works for me personally.
yeah. I mean, before an event, what's your lead up? I mean, do you play some high level rec before? Do you take a day off? Do you drill up to the last minute? Like what do you do to prep for a tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of changes, but for the most part, like let's say it's Monday, right? And we didn't have a tournament last weekend. I would probably drill like Monday through Wednesday, a couple hours a day, right? Like make sure that I'm eating right, make sure that I'm hydrating as much as I can, even though it's hard sometimes. And then, number one thing is taking care of your body as well, right? So doing a little bit of PT or doing your own exercises, because if you're really good at pickleball but can't play, it doesn't really matter as much, right? So, and then I would say, because I don't really play singles, then I would fly in like Thursday morning as soon as I can, try to get acclimated, and again, drink a lot of water. Thursday, I would for sure play games, with my mixed partner or something, try to get used to that as well. And then, yeah, just play the event on Friday.
Yeah. And how much game planning do you? Because I've talking to some pros that are like a little bit more specific, and some are like, hey, we want one or two spots with a little bit more frequency. Where's your brain go to in terms of game plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think game planning is great. I think, everyone should do it. It honestly depends on who you're playing, right? So there's a lot of teams that you want to target just one person. There's a lot of teams out there that you want to move the ball around. There's teams out there that you want to just hit middle to because they're too good, creating angles and openings from the outside of the court. So obviously, like I said, I know everyone's game and I know their weaknesses and I know their strengths, and they know mine, right? But yeah, you talk to your partner about it, you figure it out, and then you try to do what you think is best to beat that team. I think unfortunately for a lot of us right now, because we switch partners so much, it actually becomes more about figuring us out than figuring how to beat them. Because you know what they're doing and you know how they're gonna do it. But if you haven't done it with your partner before, then getting that kind of to work it's more difficult than actually like beating them.
Got it. So it's basically the partner coordination, like the basic who's going to do what, how are we going to uh, learning about, how the chemistry works and how you can possibly win points and stuff like that.
Yeah, or who takes what ball and where is this ball going to go and what kind of spin and how deep or how short inside of the kitchen, right? Because if I go and tell you Tats, and let's say you're playing the right side and there's somebody in front of you, right? And this person's on the left. If our goal is to pick on the person in front of you in this case, and you're thinking three down the line, but then one goes super sharp cross court, then we're out of the pattern, right? So then that's just gonna mess everything up at that point. So there's a lot of those things that with a new partnership, you're like, oh, like this shot feels good here, when in reality, you should just stick to the pattern that works, and that's what the best teams do so well. Like, yeah, I could hit a speed up here, like Colin could sometimes, right? But he doesn't because but with this shot, now I can get Ben involved in the next one. Somewhere along those lines. I'm just kind of talking, but
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Huh. Um, so basically, so basically, like if the strategy is right, it obviously pays to work with a person that's used to being flexible or has the shots, right? And is comfortable
Mhm.
hitting a variety of shots to mold into sort of a strategy that's, that could work better.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people out there just, are really good at doing one thing, and that one thing might not work against some team, right? So let's say I'm playing men's doubles with, let's say, Mario, which is a good friend of mine, right? And I'm playing the left, and there's Jay in front of Mario and then Matt right in front of me. Like, the last thing I want to do is have Matt right thinking with Mario and then me get sped up at all the time, right? So then if Mario was only to be good at thinking cross court, then we get destroyed that match in that case, right? I mean, hypothetically speaking, but that's kind of like the point that I'm trying to make.
Got it. So versatility is very, very important
Yeah,
for,
it is, especially when you're switching partners regardless, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure. For you, I enjoyed your podcast, but I was curious,
Thank you.
conversations with DJ. What's
Hmm.
your goal with your podcast?
Was my what? Sorry.
What's your goal with your podcast?
I mean, honestly, like I just first of all, I just enjoy doing it. I like talking to people and kind of getting to know people, and I like putting the content out there. I think it's fun, you know, 'cause for so many years now, I just been playing pickleball itself, and I like doing the networking side of things as well, as much or more than I like playing pickleball. But I mean, I don't have like a short-term goal or anything. If anything, I would love to have like a long-term goal of, you know, being in the 1%, you know, podcasting sort of realm, you know, somewhere along those lines. Even just like money aside, like I think it's just a really cool thing to do, and things that people enjoy. And I've been getting a lot of compliments about it, and most people like the videos, and so I just want to keep doing it. And then if it doesn't pay off in the long run, then I'll just stop, you know, doing it. Or if I even not even pay off, if I just like don't like doing it anymore, then I'll just stop. But as long as I like it, I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, you asked very good questions.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Everything's on the go. I just do it like raw.
Love it. Now, speaking about raw, what are things that people misunderstand about you?
Hmm, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I would say the only thing that I can think of, right? It's like I at tournaments, I feel I have like a game face on, and I look a little scary at times, or a little intimidating. But at the end of the day, like I'm you know like yeah, if we got into a fight, like you know, I'll probably win, but but that said, is like you know, it's never really gonna get there, right? So it's like I'm nice to everybody. I don't have any beef with anyone, and everyone that knows me, I think, you know, for the most part, likes me. So that's kind of where I think that's the only thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this is a common question, but I'm always curious about asking is, pickleball, it's growing participation wise, but the viewership at the pro level, is still kind of growing, or is trying to grow more. What do you think of the keys?
The keys to the pickleball game growing.
Growing at the pro level. I know there's a lot of back and forth, rule changes, all sorts of stuff going on. What's the key for you? Do you think it's gonna become bigger?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key for me to the game to the pro sport to get bigger and bigger, it would be to realistically have a rule book where the rules are not being bent at all times, so there's like no loopholes or things like that, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous how bad it is nowadays, where, you know, oh, you can't do this, and then somebody like, you know, flicks the ball, and then it's like, oh, but that's fine. You know, I mean, I love Zayn, but I'm saying like that's what happened like 2 3 years ago, right? And then there's always something at all times. Now, obviously, is the paddle stuff. We're like, oh, if it becomes delaminated, quote unquote, it's not good. But if you like make it delaminated, it's fine. It's like, well, it's the same paddle. It's like, what's the difference, right? Like, so I would say just kind of having rules that, you know, are not that there's no such thing as like as many loopholes as there is. And I understand there's always going to be something, but right now it just seems like every rule has something, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and I don't think it should be that way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right. I mean, you answered so many of my questions. Is there anything that I did not ask you, but you wanted to share?
Where does the name Tats come from?
Tetsuya, short for Tetsuya. And when I was younger, grade seven or whatever, I mean, I lived in an area where a Japanese name wasn't common at all.
Mhm.
So people came up with all creative ways to call my name. And some of those names I didn't like. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna shorten it and I'm gonna offer up a easy way to pronounce my name, Tat, and
Mhm.
I just stuck with it.
Yeah, I like tats because I have tattoos, so I was kind of thinking somewhere along those lines. But no, I like it.
Awesome, man.
And what's this alpha thing on the side?
It's just I know someone that started sort of a paddle company locally. He's been really helpful for me. So I just said, hey, I want to learn more about pickleball, how to get better, have a better and more, well, not better, but just much deeper experience that I had when I played competitive tennis. And part of
Mhm.
it was, um, you know, learning from pros like you and stuff like that. So I said, hey, I'll do the interview, you do the rest. Yeah, do we have a deal? And that's Charles and his Alpha brand. So he's been good to me.
Nice, very cool. That's awesome. It was really good meeting you, and I appreciate you asking all these questions, having me on.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to the Alpha Pickleball Podcast with Tats. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, rate, and connect with us on social media. Stay alpha on the pickleball court. Until our next session.